Greetings, everybody. Back for with another live stream. I'm Dr. Keith Fairclough, your relationship and emotional intelligence specialist. And so, for one, I just want to start off by saying, guys, I apologize. I know I have not been as consistent this week. I think I might have got one in, was it on Monday, maybe Monday or Tuesday or something like that. But I've been working on some other things and it's been taking up a lot of my computer power. And I just really haven't been able to use my computer like I needed to. So by the time those things were done, I finally got everything finished today. So I'm finally able to get back on, and then what we're going to be talking about today, if you already see the title, we're going to be talking about resentment. Last week, I hit you guys with the introduction, and the idea was to go through each step, live stream by live stream. And I may go back and do that. But just for tonight, I want to hit the whole thing, right? I want to go through the whole thing. I want to go through the whole process of how do you eliminate resentment for your life forever, because it is possible. You don't have to sit there and carry all that weight for the rest of your life. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. All the stuff you've been carrying for such a long time, it's possible to let that stuff go, to repair relationships, and honestly, to repair your health. Before we go any further, guys, again, if you ever need any help or anything like that, please feel free to reach out. I'm worked on my Linktree link. I know it's up on TikTok. I think I got to get it around to everywhere else as well. So after I'm done here, and get my son from karate, I will go and make sure I get that all up. So you guys have access to all the links to getting a consultation, the links to resources, the links to other the social media platforms, whatever, right? You'll get all those links, the workbooks, everything like that. Also, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to send me an email and just asking that, right? Again, you can send all emails to info@fcstherapylasvegas.com. You can send all your questions there. I'm trying to think of some different things to do as far as these live streams are concerned. Just before I got on, I was practicing some to check the system out, to do like reaction videos, right? Because, a lot of my stuff that comes across my feed, relationship, things like that. And I hear some of these things and I'm like, what are we even doing? Like, why are we even asking these questions? Like, one of my actually favorite channels is Tonight's Conversation. They have actually, I guess, within the last, I want to say year or so, they've been getting pretty good, some pretty good advice, but sometimes some people come up and ask some questions, right? So I'll be bringing that up and probably other videos as well, and maybe set up certain days that are just reaction days where I pull up videos and just react to them. And again, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, or you want to have comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. But without further ado, right, I don't want to spend all the time just kind of talking about what we're going to be doing in the future. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing tonight, right? So we're going to be talking about resentment, and we're going to be talking about what it is. We're going to be talking about how it affects us. And we're not going to spend a ton of time there because I think the previous live stream on that talked about that, right? Talked about it in pretty good depth. So just kind of brushing over that. But we're actually going to go into how we can start solving that. And of course, I have a system, a 6-step system that I run clients through in order to help them relieve and eliminate resentment forever for the rest of their life. And so, of course, it's going to be in depth. And if you really want to remove resentment from your life, please feel free to reach out and let me know. We can work together and help you do that. Again, the live stream, it's not going to be enough to go through everything, but I'm going to give you a good general overview so that even if we don't work together, even if it's like, I'm going to take this information and run with it, you can still do, what you need to do with it and eliminate that resentment. All right. So let's hop into it. Right. So, what's resentment? And resentment it's protection. That's what resentment is. Resentment is when your brain gets information that's incomplete and you make the situation about you because you don't have all the information, because your brain needs to know what to do with it. Your brain is a meaning-making machine, right? So because it's a meaning-making machine, it's looking to make sense of everything that happens around it. And so if it can't make sense of it, what it's going to do is going to default to, then it must be about me. What he said must be about me. Why he didn't look at me the right way, why she doesn't desire me, why it must be something I did, something that's wrong with me. And because we default to that and we don't control our brain in those moments, what ends up happening is, man, we start looking for more evidence of how they're going to hurt me, how they're going to attack me, how they're going to tear me apart, whatever the case may be. And we start building this up. So now we're only looking for the negative. You ever wonder why you always, it just, no matter how much good you do, it seems like your spouse, never sees it. It seems like you're not good enough. If that's probably a pretty strong sign there's a resentment there. Strong signs there's a resentment there. Because again, we're not regulating ourselves like we need to look at the situation for what it is and look at how incomplete the information is. I mean, how many times people, what they'll do is they'll look at certain behaviors and then they'll make a judgment on that and say, well, that person must be like that, or they're acting funny, or they have an attitude, or all these things like that. And as someone who used to work with kids that had behaviors, and I used to work with behavioral specialists and things of that nature, what I can tell you is we can explain the antecedent, what happened beforehand. We can explain the behavior, what the person did. We can explain the consequence, right? So I'll give you an example of because I used to work in the school district. So I'll give you an example of kids. Antecedent, kids are picking on Johnny. Behavior, Johnny gets up, punches kid in the face. Consequence, kid has a bloody nose, Johnny gets suspended, right? That's the ABC's behavior. If you're into schools or behavioralists or whatever the case may be, you know what I'm talking about, right? So we know what happened. We know what happened. We don't know why it caused Johnny, why Johnny decided to punch him instead of do something else. We don't know why it affected Johnny in the way it did. We don't know that information. We can't make a meaning. You can't take behaviors and make a meaning out of it. It's at the best, it's a bad assumption, a bad guess. That's all it is, right? But you will never know. And I cannot express to you how many times I've worked with couples and I'm literally in the session with them and they're making assumptions right there in the moment, right? And they're guessing right in the moment instead of asking questions. They're guessing. And I don't think I've ever come across someone when they actually were right. When they were right about their husband or wife's emotions or their thoughts or their feelings. I can't. Not really, right? Maybe a couple of people might get it from time to time, but usually that's because we had conversations and things were out there and things like that. So, long story short, we look at behaviors and we're trying to make a meaning out of it, right? You look at your parents' behaviors when you were younger and you're trying to make a meaning out of it. And the meaning is there's something wrong with me. I'm a bad kid. I'm a bad person. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of respect. I have to earn love. I have to perform to get love. I'm never that's the meaning we get from our parents' behavior. So again, we can understand what makes them do that or what they did. And again, the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence, right? We could look at that, but we'll never know why. And I can tell you this, though, when I talk with a lot of people and I talk with, individual sessions and couple sessions, we start talking about their parents. And you know what? It's invariably, yeah, they came from a situation like that too. Yeah, they were neglected too. Yeah, they were abused too. Yeah, they were molested too, or something else happened, right? Something happened to their parent, right? It's yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. It makes sense as to why they treated you like they did. It makes sense to why they were disconnected from you the way they were. It makes sense as why they were super judgmental as they were. But that's the key thing, right? And I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit, but it's not about you. That's why when it comes to resentment, it's for one, it doesn't really work when you start really breaking it down. When you stop making it about you and you start looking at the other person, understanding there's probably something that happened in their life that's causing them to act and behave this way, then it changes how you view the situation now. And again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, right? Because I'm going to start jumping around. So I want to go to the first step. Right? And the first step in dealing with resentment. You're dealing with someone and you're dealing with resentment. The first step is you've got to regulate your emotions. I cannot stress that enough. If you don't learn how to regulate your emotions, then you will fall prey and you will fall into the trap every single time. You must be able to regulate your emotions. Because if your emotions are not regulated, you know what's going to end up happening? You're going to go from 0 to 100. All your old patterns, all that stuff's going to kick right in. You just the defensiveness, the contempt, the criticism, the fighting back, the shutting down, the running away. It's going to kick right in, and you're not going to be able to do anything else that we're talking about tonight. Nothing else. So you got to make sure you know how to regulate your emotions, regulate your body. Matter of fact, let me break it down even more. All right, because maybe that's the wrong way to say it. Maybe I need to change that up. Right? You talk about regulating our emotions, but we'll get to emotions. Emotions, that's the next part, right? Process, and we'll get to that. What I really mean is you need to regulate your body. That's a better way to put it. You need to regulate your body because things happen in your body so fast. When you talk about fight or flight, your body is ready for battle or ready to run. So you got to be able to regulate your body. And that means when you feel something coming on, you know how to ground yourself. And for anyone who doesn't necessarily know what a grounding technique is, a grounding technique is something that it grounds you in reality. It keeps you present. It keeps you from getting lost in the feelings. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. I remember one time me and my wife were having a conversation at my friend's wedding last year. We're having a conversation, and it started to get a little tense, and I had a towel there. There was a towel in the bathroom. I had rolled it up and folded, or maybe she folded up, whatever. And using grounding techniques, I started rubbing the towel. I was rubbing the towel. I was feeling the texture, and I was grounding myself. Right? I kept rubbing. As we're having the conversation, I'm rubbing it. You know what that helped me do? It helped me to stay present. You know why it was important for me to stay present? Because when I can stay present, not only can I know what I'm feeling and regulate it, but I can also listen to my wife better. I can also move past some of maybe the things that communication things that weren't necessarily right, but get to the actual meaning of it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, by being able to ground myself in that moment and then and really process things in real time, we were able to resolve the conversation. It wasn't conflict. It resolve the conversation. I was able to understand where she was coming from. We were able to go on for the rest of the day, and it was great. No issues, no problems, no harm, no foul. Everything turned out phenomenal, right? But imagine back in the day, right? Back in the day, there was no grounding. You said what? I don't do that. And now we're back and forth. Now it's a big blowout argument. Now, I can't believe she did that. How dare she? Yada, yada, yada. Like now I'm holding on to this. Now I don't want to talk. Now I don't want to spend time together. And mind you, this is so important. Keep this in mind, right? Because I remember I was at work one day, and I think me and my wife got into it in the morning or something like that. And I started thinking about, man, I'm not going to talk to her, whatever. And then it was almost like God spoke to me. He was like, you don't have like infinite time, right? Like you don't know when your day is going to be up. Like you don't know, and God forbid you end up in a hospital bed, right? Do you really want to think back to, man, because I couldn't regulate myself, I couldn't regulate my body, I couldn't control that, I lost days, weeks, months, years of time because I had to keep running away, get into argument, running away. Do you know how much time we waste in our relationships arguing and yelling and screaming and fighting, all because we're not regulating our body? Just think about that. The person you love the most, that you want to spend the rest of your life with, we're missing out on all this time because one thing we don't want to do, we don't want to regulate our body. We don't want to take the time. Maybe we think it's lame. Maybe you think, oh, that's what those, weirdos in the forest do. They're the ones that are out there hugging trees and breathing and yoga and all that stuff like that. Listen, if we say we care about our relationships as much as we say we do, if we say we love our spouse as much as we say we do, I'll do anything for them. I'll climb the highest mountain. I'll bust my tail at work. I'll do all this, but you won't breathe for them. You won't practice breathing for a couple minutes, a couple rounds, not even a couple of minutes. It might be a couple of minutes, but we're not talking about an extended period of time. We're talking about maybe you practice it 3 breaths, 3 rounds every day. Do you love your spouse enough to practice breathing? And in my methodology, what I use 3-4-7 breathing, which is 3 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 7-second release. Slight pause, and then we'll do it again, right? And just doing 3 rounds of that. Do you love your spouse enough to practice breathing? Do you love your spouse enough to practice grounding techniques and grounding skills? And those are really easy. I'll be honest, right? Because really, and I say practice grounding skills, I think it's more so getting the head knowledge and knowing what to do in those moments. Now, there's different type of grounding techniques. They have the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding techniques where you look for 5 things, right? You feel 4 things. I think it is hear 3 things, you smell 2 things, and you taste 1 thing, right? But I personally like just the touch. I like the touch. I like, grounding. There's a lot more things around us. There's pens and controllers and pop socket stuff and all types of stuff around us at any given time. Our shirts, like it doesn't matter. There were times when me and my wife would be talking in the bathroom and there's before we got a filtration system, there'd be like calcium stuff on the faucet. And so I would just ground myself by just rubbing on it, picking at it, chipping it away. That's grounding myself. That's allowing me not to get lost to my emotions. So that regulation, the making sure you can stay present in the moment is critical. It's critical. If you played sports, think of it like this. If you played sports, right, being able to have a clear mind is going to allow you to play better than if someone gets in your head. If you're playing football and someone's talking about, yeah, I slept with your wife or I slept with your girlfriend or whatever the case may be, or if you're the female playing sports and maybe they're calling you the B word or a hoe or a skank or whatever the case may be. The reason what they're trying to do, they're trying to get you into your emotions. Because if they can get you into their emotions, it throws your game off. Now you can't play. Now you're getting all emotional. It's the exact same thing in our relationships. If you get into your emotions, you don't get them under control, you're going to be off your game. You're going to be saying things you don't mean, doing things you don't mean, threatening things you don't mean, throwing people's weaknesses back in their face and things like that, their vulnerabilities back in their face. That's what happens when you don't regulate your body. You must regulate your body. And I strongly recommend, like I said, the 3-4-7 breathing. I have videos on my YouTube channel about that. 3-4-7 breathing, the whole playlist. There's progressive muscle relaxation. Now that might be a little that now. Let me also say this. There's gonna be some classifications, right? So grounding techniques, you can do those right away. Right? You could start using that stuff right away. All you have to make sure you're doing is focusing on what you're doing in the moment, being mindful in the moment and whatever you're doing, whether it's touching something or looking at something, maybe you're describing it, maybe you're like the tactile feel of it, whatever the case may be, the smell of it, the taste of it's gum, and you're feeling the gum, and maybe you're combining some grounding techniques. So maybe it's not just the taste of the gum, but maybe it's also the texture of it. Maybe it's really hard, or maybe it's soft, or whatever it might be, right? So you can combine some of these grounding techniques as well. But when it comes to grounding, that's that. However, there's the other techniques you're not going to be able to just use unless you got to practice them. You got to practice other techniques. So you got to practice breathing. Again, 3-4-7 breathing. I got that on my channel, my YouTube channel. You can go check that out. Progressive muscle relaxation and meditation. All right. So let me share this. So progressive muscle relaxation and meditation, right? The purpose of doing these is to learn the baseline of your body. Because here's the thing. In order to know when you need to regulate, you need to know when you're dysregulated. Right. And yes, you can set your heart rate monitor to 100 beats to alarm you when it goes off, but sometimes it might be too late. And if you're really trained, you might just set it to like 80 beats. That's when you really start getting amped up. Right. But the whole purpose of progressive muscle relaxation and meditation and breathing is for you to be able to get your baseline. What is my norm? What do I normally feel like? Because once you are aware of your norm, because that's what all that stuff does, especially progressive muscle relaxation, because you literally go through every muscle in your body. You tighten up, you'll start at your feet, you'll tighten it up, you'll hold it for a few seconds, then you release. Then you move up to your calves, tighten it, then you release. And what it does is it trains you to be fully aware of what's going on in your body at all times. So once you get that baseline, once you've practiced enough, you practice your breathing enough, you practice your meditation enough, you've done your progressive muscle relaxation enough, you've done those things enough. Now you can start using those if things start to get a let out of hand. Like you can use the breathing techniques, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, breathing doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. That's because you haven't practiced it. You must practice breathing in order for it to work. Because what happens is when you practice breathing and those moments come up and you take a breath, that breath is a reminder to your nervous system that, we need to calm. Bring it down. Let's get calm, right? Get baseline. That's what we do, a baseline. That you're just telling us, giving us a signal to get to baseline, right? You can combine the breathing with the grounding in order to stay present and in the moment. So this is the first step. You must regulate your body. Regulate your body, right? The second step, and this is going to take some work even outside of these conversations, but you got to process your emotions. And what do I mean by process? I have a system I call FAST, right? Where it stands for feel the emotion, acknowledge it without judgment, sort it, understand what it's telling you. And is it from now? Is it from later? And then transform it. That means, like, what am I going to do about it? You're going to act on whatever the message is, right? So that's my 4-step formula for processing your emotions. But the key part is you have to understand what the emotions are telling you. You have to understand what the signals are. You have to do a little bit of study on this, right? And I have materials on my resource folder. And again, I get the links all around and everything like that. But I have some resources that kind of tell you what the emotions, about 20 emotions, what they mean, the physical symptoms, the mental symptoms, some examples of it, and then what you can do about it, right? And we're talking about anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, happiness, love, jealousy, envy. Like, I got 20 emotions in there, because the thing is, once you can understand what an emotion is telling you, you'll know how to respond. So you'll feel it, right? You'll feel the emotion, like, man, they just said something that was inflammatory, bro. I'm upset right now. All right, I'm upset. All right, you acknowledge it. It's okay for me to be upset because of what was just said. It's okay for me to have my feelings. And sort it. Okay, is this about what was said, or is this about something else in the past? Is that what she meant? You start sorting it, right? Making sense of it. Because sometimes when you start sorting it, then you start recognizing, oh, this has nothing to do with them. This has something to do with me from my past. It changes what we do the transformation stage, because now once you recognize, oh, that's not what I was actually feeling, or that's from something else, then we know what to do on the other side, right? So, for example, let's say I'll run through anxiety real quick. So let's say I'm feeling anxious, right? I've identified the emotion. I now acknowledge it. Okay, yeah, there's a reason why I'm feeling anxious, because I don't know if I'm ready for this presentation, or I'm not ready for this talk, or I'm not ready for whatever, right? I'm not ready to have this discussion with my wife, right? And then I sort it. Well, is this has something to do with, the situation me and my wife are in, or is it something from before, my past, right? And let's just say it's something from my past, right? I'm not good in conversations or something like that, and they always go wrong, right? And so then in the last part, transform it. Okay, now what do we do, right? Oh, well, then I need to make sure I prepare for it, right? If she said she wants to talk, I got to make sure I'm prepared for it. Maybe practice my communication skills, or let her know that, hey, I just want to let you know I'm feeling a little anxious right now, because I don't know if I'm ready for what we're about to talk about, whatever the case may be, right? But you start processing the emotion right there in the moment, right? So once you start learning how to process your emotions, now we can really start getting to the work. Right? So the third step is, don't take it personal. Nothing your spouse does is personal. It's not about you. I know you think it's about you. I know you create a story where it's about you. I get that. I know. I did the same thing. I did the same exact thing. But I'm here to tell you, it is not about you. How do I know it's not about you? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Because from 0 to 7, about 85% of how we're going to be for the rest of our life, unless we change it, is locked in. From 7 to 10, 95% of how we're going to be for the rest of our life is locked in, unless we change it. Unless this is like Game of Thrones and you're in the house Targaryen or something like that, and y'all grew up running around together, chances are you probably were not in your spouse's life at all. You had no idea who they were. You probably weren't living in the same place at all. A majority of us, that's what it was. So now, if 95% of how someone's going to be is established by the time they're 10, and there are pretty much zero systems, for the most part, zero systems to challenge or change people's behaviors, And then on top of that, most people aren't even aware, and we chalk it up to culture, and we chalk it up to being teenagers, we chalk it up to being kids, we chalk it not the dysfunction that's going on, not the fact that we're being dismissed and invalidated, none of that. We chalk it up to everything else. So we're locking in, like we're really cementing it in by the time they become teenagers, by the time they become adults, how they're going to be unless they change it. It has been is well established. And guess what? Here's the key part to all that. You weren't part of that process. So it has nothing to do with you. You're taking what they're saying personally. You're taking their behaviors personally. You're taking their defensiveness personally. I'm telling you right now, it's not about you. Not at all. You making it about you, that's how you build resentment. You're trying to make a meaning out of their behavior. Why would they say that? Why would they do that? Why would he do this? Why would she do that? You're trying to make a meaning behind it. You don't have to. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to make a meaning behind it. You could just ask. And if it's unclear, then you can just default to, well, it's something they got going on. Right? There's something they got going on. I don't know what it is. I was just asking, about, how their day was. They bit my head off. I don't know what's going on, but that's something that they got to deal with, right? It's not personal, guys. I'm saying right now, it's not personal. If you want a deeper dive on that, please read the 4 agreements. He talks about that as well, right? Because the fact of the matter is, even if they do something to you, it's still not about you. That's a decision that they made based off their experiences and things they've been through. It's not about you. It's about them and what they've been through. Right. So now once the eyes are off you, that breaks one of the biggest gears within resentment. Because resentment, the core of resentment is it's about me. I make it about me to protect myself. Now when it's no longer about me, now when it's about something else or somebody else, some past experience, some whatever, that resentment, it starts to really start to break down. Now we're getting somewhere. Step 3, now we're getting somewhere because you've been regulated. You regulated your body. You know what you're feeling. You now know it's not about you. So that's going to help even ease things even more, right? So now we move on to step 4. Step 4 is you must forgive and you must have compassion. As a matter of fact, do it in the other way, right? Have compassion, then forgive. We have compassion, then we forgive. And having compassion is just feeling for the other person. Essentially, you're validating and empathizing with them, right? Now, granted, you can have compassion on someone and not know what they've gone through. But I would suppose as a spouse, you guys would have had a conversation, or a boyfriend or girlfriend, you guys should have been having conversations, about this. If you're planning on getting serious, I should say. If you're just starting out dating, you're probably not going to share any deep things. But if you would share deep things and you start knowing, and I'll even share this story. I remember, I think one time me and my wife got into it, and same things before I knew what to do, right? We weren't really talking and things like that. And then I went on my prayer walk. No, I wouldn't do my prayer walk. That was another time. But it was after this, I think we went to the basketball court to play basketball with my son. Still, me and her weren't really talking, things like that. And I got home, and it was almost like God gave me a vision of my wife, right, as a kid. And the vision that he gave me of my wife as a kid was like her getting like stomped out, like by a whole bunch of guys. And what was worse about this vision is that I was one of the guys that was stomping her out. And it broke my heart because I wasn't looking at her as someone that, how bad is she? I wasn't looking at her like that. My heart broke. I think even tears came to my eye to think of her being in that position and me being one of the ones to do that, to make her feel unsafe, right? So I apologized to her, went and had a conversation and started working through it and all that, right? Really recognizing that, again, that key part, like, wasn't about me. She didn't feel safe, right? And that was a huge revelation. I praise God for it. But what it allowed me to start doing was having compassion. Instead of me looking at her like, oh, she's this horrible person, it's like I started having compassion. I know it's not about me. I'm having compassion, right? I'm having compassion. I'm understanding, I'm empathizing with her. I'm validating what she's saying. I'm validating her concerns, right? I'm having compassion in those moments. And then I forgive. That's the next part. Because I'm not saying that, she was innocent in all that she's done, but I'm saying that, but I have compassion and I forgive because I don't know what it's like to be in her shoes. She doesn't know what it's like to be in my shoes. You don't know what it's like to be in your spouse's shoes. You don't know what it's like to experience what they experience. You know about the abuse, the hurt, the abandonment, the neglect. You don't know what that's like and what they had to endure as children. And now we as adults, well, a lot of times we'll tell our story as just a matter of fact. That's just the way it was. It was hard, right? But I'm talking about that when you get down to the deep emotions, start thinking of that person as a child and how they felt alone and how they were scared and how they were abandoned and how they never heard I love you and they never got hugs and it starts breaking you down. Like, how can you not have compassion on somebody like that? How can you not think of someone in that way? And especially you look at your spouse and you're like, man, I love you so much. You're so great and everything like that. They can't even see it in themselves because someone else destroyed their self-esteem a long time ago, their self-worth a long time ago. That should break your heart. How can you not have compassion on your spouse, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, or your husband, or your wife? Like, how can you not have compassion on them and love them in that moment? You got to have compassion on them, right? And you forgive. And a lot of people, what they'll say is, well, I don't want to forgive because, what if it happens again? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But we're at step 4 right now. You need to forgive. You got to forgive. Because guess what? When you hold on to unforgiveness, you're not hurting anybody else. Again, you think you're keeping yourself safe. You're not keeping yourself safe. You're keeping yourself trapped. You're keeping yourself trapped with that memory, trapped with what they did, trapped with how you felt, trapped in that moment, thinking it's keeping you safe, and it's killing you. Every time you hold on to unforgiveness, it's destroying you, it's killing you, it's stressing you out. And you think, nah, I'm cutting people off left, right, and center. Now you're lonely. Or now you're wondering, well, why does no one want to be around me? Or this and this and that and that. We're communal people. How many people are you going to cut off from your life before you're by yourself forever? It's very, 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 very few people that are cool just being out off the grid and just being by themselves. Very few people. There are some. There are absolutely some. There's one guy in Russia, in Siberia or something like that. He lives by himself, only comes into town for food. But there are some. Most of us, though, are not like that. And you can't be like that in your relationship. Right? You can't just be like, let's isolate and you can't do that. You got to forgive. And forgiveness is letting go of the offense. It's letting go of the offense. Because just because you don't take it personal doesn't mean an offense wasn't there. If someone called me, the N-word, dumb N-word, MF or something like that, then guess what? I'm going to be offended. I'm not going to take it personal, but I don't want to be called that. Right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to release that person. I don't want to hold on to that. I'm going to release myself first. Forgiveness releases you first, the other person second, right? I forgive you. Hey, don't worry about it. Hey, you good, right? And now, but for those of you who say, but Keith, what if they do it again? You don't have to worry about that. That's the beauty of this framework. You don't have to worry about getting hurt again because the number 5 is boundaries. I'm gonna have to do a whole series on boundaries, right? How to set them up, what they are, why they're important. But boundaries, that is how you keep yourself safe. That is how you keep yourself from building resentment, from allowing poor treatment. That's how you keep yourself from all that. Why? Because what is a boundary? A boundary, I just did a podcast on this the other day. A boundary is when you set something up that teaches people how you want to be treated. Think of it like an operating system for a relationship with you. This is actually just kind of coming to my head right now. Think of it like that. All right. So an operating system has certain parameters, and these certain parameters have to be met in order for it to work properly. So your boundaries are the same way. There's certain ways you want to be treated physically, mentally, emotionally, digitally, financially, like all these things, right? There's ways you want to be treated. And so your operating system, those are your boundaries, right? You set those things up. So now when you teach people how you want to be treated, now they can be in proper relationship with you. But if they don't want to treat you the way you want to be treated, then guess what? You don't have to be in a relationship with that person, and you don't have to let it go so far. Remember, this is why it all works together. If you're regulating your body, if you're mastering your emotions and processing them properly, you're not taking things personal, and you're able to have compassion and forgiveness, then we get to this point right here, and if someone says something, all you have to do, you don't have to get mad, right? Because you're regulated. You don't have to get mad. You don't have to get big in the chest. You don't have to yell, scream, nothing like that. All you have to say is, hey, listen, I'll be honest right now. The way you're talking to me, for me, it's disrespectful. Right? For me, it's disrespectful. I don't like it. And honestly, it's hurtful. If because, whatever the reason is, right? Reminds me of like when I talked with my parents when I was a kid, and I don't like it. If you want to talk with me, please make sure that you're using a calm tone so I can receive what you're saying and I can meet your need, right? And in case anyone, I just use the sir format, but you just share that with them, right? Now, the only appropriate answer is, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk to you that way. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to disrespect you. That wasn't my intention. I apologize. That's the only correct answer. But more often than not, we don't usually give the correct answer. People don't give the correct answer. Most people do more often than not, they defend themselves. Well, if you didn't say this and I wouldn't have, you're making a big deal out of nothing. I'm not yelling. I'm not raising my voice. What are you talking about? You're being so dramatic. That's usually what the answers we give. And so essentially what you just do is just dismiss somebody and validate somebody probably multiple times all in that one comment, right? Or you start making it about yourself. You always do this, and I'm just so hurt, and this always happens, and my family and my kids. And no. See, that's the beauty of boundaries, right? You set the boundary. And if they don't want to obey it, they don't want to follow it, they don't want to operate in your operating system, they don't get access to you in that part of you. They just don't. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes we stay in these conversations way too long. A lot of times we do. If we're going to be in a conversation, it's got to be mutual respect. We got to be respecting each other's boundaries. And there has to be a desire to understand the other person. If there's no desire to understand the other person, then guess what? There's no conversation to be had, period. There's none. There's no point. If I'm having a conversation with someone who doesn't want to talk, who doesn't want to engage, who doesn't want to try to understand what I'm saying, there's no point in me having the conversation. So you teach the person your boundary, right? And also, I probably jumped the gun a little bit too. So boundaries are, I did say it's how you want to be treated, but they're based off your beliefs and your standards. Your boundaries are going to be based off your beliefs and your standards. Yeah. So once you know what your beliefs and standards are, and then once you know how you want to be treated in order to make sure those are upheld, then you have to now enforce it. And the enforcement of a boundary is real simple, right? You teach someone your boundary. So, and that's the thing. You're not going to be able to know all the different boundaries, right? Like every single one. Although I do have a workbook, a boundary mastery workbook that does teach you the 9 different domains, and you could actually get that workbook and work through it, and you can get a general idea, pretty good general idea of each of those domains, 9 of the domains, where I help you to identify those boundaries. And so now you won't be in the dark about how you want to be treated, and you'll be able to teach people and avoid the offense, right? Because sometimes, even though people don't know, we can still be hurt. So I would definitely recommend it. It's going to be in one of the links. If not, you can find it on Amazon. Again, it's called the Boundary Mastery Workbook. Again, you work through it, and it'll help you to identify your boundaries and teach you how to enforce them as well, right? So, but that was a plug. But so that's the other part, right? So now you teach someone about their boundaries, about your boundaries, and now the next part is, well, what happens if they're still not following it, right? Because I'll be honest, when you start having boundaries, and a lot of times we have not had boundaries. When we start having boundaries now it becomes a little more difficult for people because they're like, you're switching up. You're doing something different. You're being different. It's like, yeah, but for a good reason. So if they don't want to obey your boundaries, they start making it about them. They start getting defensive. They start calling you names. They start dismissing you, invalidating you, things like that. Then what you need to do is you need to make sure you walk away from the situation and let them know why you're walking away. You must let them know why you are walking away. Do not just walk away, because then what they're going to do is, see, you're always running away, always da-da-da-da-da. They're not going to be able to take responsibility for their own behaviors. But if you tell them, listen, I was telling you how I want to be talked to. You're not talking to me that way. So I'm going to end this conversation. I'm no longer going to be a part of it, because I don't want to be talked to that way. But if you do want to change, maybe we can talk about, we could talk maybe a little bit more about this at a later time, but I'm not engaging anymore. Yeah. And then you might get called a bully, or you might get called you're controlling, or you're manipulating, or they might throw the narcissist thing at you. You need to let all that stuff roll off your back like water off a duck's back, right? Just to let it go, right? And if they're the type of person you're with, the type of person, the husband or wife that wants to keep talking in the background and slamming things around and things like that, I strongly, 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 strongly recommend that you get your I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. Yeah, I would strongly recommend you get a good pair of noise canceling headphones. Strongly recommend it, because if they're going to keep going on in the background, trying to incite something in you, trying to get you riled up, trying to get you dysregulated, you need something to block that out. If you can leave the area, leave the area. Side note, don't have serious conversations, or if you see a conversation going sideways in an enclosed space, in the car, maybe at an event or hotel room. So you as much as possible disengage from the conversation beforehand, right? Because it's very dangerous to be in an enclosed place and things start going sideways, right? So just putting that out there, okay? And so the last part, yeah, I might have to speed run it a little bit because, I got to get my son from karate, but the last part's operating excellence. And this part is critical, and this part's important. And again, I might go back and just do all these individually, each part, to give you more details on each one and even practice some of the skills, right? But this part right here, operating in excellence, it's so important. I cannot stress it enough, because this is the last piece of it. It's the armor. It's the part that keeps you safe. And what I mean by operating excellence is that you're checking your behaviors to make sure you're on the up and up with everything you're doing, right? You're operating as your best self. You're communicating the right way. You're taking responsibility for your actions. You apologize if you make a mistake, and you apologize quick, fast, and efficiently, right? And legitimately, right? Like, that's what you do. That's what you do on a regular basis, right? You're making sure, like, I'm checking, am I talking properly, right? Am I talking properly? Am I using I statements? Am I listening to understand instead of respond? Was I a little tense? Was there any truth to what they said about me? We're analyzing ourselves and making sure our behaviors, that we are above reproach. And the reason why this part's so important, because not only does it allow us to really eliminate resentment, but it also starts allowing change in the other person. Because what happens is, if you remove yourself from the equation, like, I'm not contributing to the dysfunction anymore. I'm going to learn the skills, the regulation, the emotions, the forgiveness. I'm not going to allow myself to go there. I'm going to remove myself from the dysfunction equation. When I remove myself from the dysfunction equation, the other person has to change. They're either going to change, or they're going to leave. But more often than not, they're going to change, because what ends up happening is, once you remove yourself from the dysfunctional equation, what ends up happening is they have to what's it called? They have to adjust. Their nervous system has to adjust. It has to adjust to them, right? It has to adjust to them. So that's what's so just critical and important, right? When we remove ourselves from that conversation, we remove ourselves. I mean, not the conversation, but I'm saying, we remove ourselves, start doing the right things over and over again. We start doing that, right? Then the other person, over time, you be consistent and you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That's part of operating excellence. When you start doing that, you know what happens? Now their nervous system starts to change. It starts to adapt. They don't have to get loud anymore because you're listening. They don't have to go on for days without talking because you're open. There's no resentment. As long as they respect your boundaries, right? They start learning your boundaries, start respecting that. You start seeing that change happen over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, now your relationship is getting better, right? And again, this whole time you're sitting pretty, like, you got no problems, no harm, no foul, nothing like that. Like, you're good, right? So with that being said, when you do these 6 steps, I'm telling you right now, when you do these 6 steps, you're going to have so much peace. You're going to have so much joy. You're going to be able to enjoy your relationship a lot more. There's going to be less downtime. There's going to be less running away. There's going to be less anxiety. There's going to be less of all that stuff. And you're going to be living And you'd be like, wow, I didn't think I could live like this. You're going to walk away from conversations and be like, I didn't know I could be like this. How can I be at peace? She was just flipping out. How can I be at peace? He was just flipping out. Like, how was I able to do that? Right? Because there's no longer any resentment. You're not holding on to anything. You're seeing, you're having compassion on them. You're showing love to them, right? You're not taking it personal. You have your boundaries so you stay safe. You stay safe and your relationships stay protected. Their nervous system now gets to readjust to the new you. This is the power. This is the power of going through this process and eliminating all of those things that were causing resentment. So, like I said before, guys, I got to go get my son. But listen, please take that time and go back through this. And I will go back. I'm going to break this down. So there are going to be 6 live streams where we're going to talk about each step and we're going to go into detail. We're going to practice breathing. We'll probably practice some progressive muscle relaxation. We'll probably go through all of that, right? You know, what it looks like to not take it personal, give some examples, things like that. We're going to go through all of that because I think it's really important for you guys to understand. But I promise you guys, you don't have to live with resentment. You don't have to live with that. You do not have to. You do not have to live with resentment. Right? You can have a life of peace, of love, of joy. You can give your own peace. You don't have to worry about anybody else giving it to you. You can have your own peace every single day. Every single day. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, please feel free to reach out and let me know. Again, I'm going to get those links up everywhere else. You know, so again, the Boundary Master workbook, we're going to get that up. I think it was having some issues with that, but I'll get that adjusted. You know, but that's going to be a great thing for you if you struggle with boundaries, because it will help you identify your boundaries. It will teach you how to enforce them. It'll teach you how to find your different beliefs that build up your boundaries and things along those lines. So again, y'all take care. Have a great, awesome, and blessed night. And as always, remember that you are not alone. Y'all take care. Have a great, blessed night. I'll see you next time.